Hey there, it's Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you my September reading wrap up. This will be part 1 because I read 21 books in the month of September and needed to split it in 2. I will have content warnings in the description box down low if this is something that you might need, but without further ado, let's get right down to the books that I read in September. So I wanted to start on a high this month, and a book that I gave 5 stars and became a new favourite was Mouse by Art Spiegelman. This was my first time reading this graphic novel memoir, and it emotionally was a turmoil to get through. So this one is, as I said, a memoir about this man who is talking about his dad's experience during the Holocaust, during World War II, and while it's delving into his father's past and telling his father's story, it also talks about their relationship and shows what their relationship is like now in the present day of when this was written. And I'm someone who's read and researched a lot around World War II, around the Holocaust, and every time I read a story around it, every time I read about someone's experiences, it's always harrowing and emotional to get through and difficult to read because it's just disgusting and horrible what happened. But in all of those, and reading survivors' experiences and everything, I never actually took a moment to consider what things must be like for the second generation, for the children of survivors, especially as there was so much trauma that survivors have carried and so much pain and so much grief. And so getting to see that second generation experience, how he related to his dad, the lack of relation he had to his dad, even though there's a very candid understanding between him and his dad of the history that they've been through and what they've struggled through, you can still see how it complicated their relationship in certain ways. And so I actually really appreciated the present day timeline as well as the past timeline, where it's really just telling that story in as upfront ways it can manage. The artwork in this is all in black and white, and it's also done in a way where all of the Jewish people are drawn as mice, and then the Germans are drawn as cats, and the Polish people are drawn as pigs. And this has something to do with a statement that Hitler said that was kind of like a metaphor for how people were seeing Jewish people as mice and vermin and rats that needed to be terminated. And I thought it was like a very harrowing choice to choose that metaphor and how that was trickled into the artwork. And while I wouldn't say this is like the most groundbreaking, detailed artwork ever in the world, it did exactly what it needed to do for the story, because it was simplistic enough that by reading this you're not going to be re-traumatized or suffer trauma just from looking at the images, but it's on point enough and accurate enough to know what happened. And the effect of seeing that artwork, knowing that this really happened to real people, is just obliterating, and it does what it needs to do, and it gets across those emotions in a way where it doesn't have to be very explicit with its images, but it's still right on the mark. And you're always constantly thrown in the face that metaphor throughout the whole book. Even though time has passed, even in the present day storyline, Jewish people are still drawn as mice, and I think it shows the effect that has just been carried throughout the years. It's a masterpiece in work, and it's one of those books that really just reminds me never again can we have a situation like the Holocaust, never again can we single out people and commit genocide just because of who they are. Never again can we dehumanize people to that extent. And it's scary because I do see some dehumanization, not on the same level, but coming towards, following patterns. And it was just, yeah, reading this was something else. I don't think my review can do justice of it, but I'd heard about this one for a very long time, and if you haven't read it yet, I definitely urge you to do so. So another book that I read this month was None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. And I've mentioned many times, I just keep reading thrillers and trying to be a thriller girly. Last month I was very successful, so I decided to delve into another Lisa Jewell. This is her latest release, and in this one it's following these 2 women, and they find out in a restaurant that they're birthday twins. They have a birthday on the same day, and one of these women keeps on talking to the other one and slowly weeds her way into her life, and in doing so, maybe things that she's been told about this other woman who just keeps pestering her are not true, and maybe there's something sinister going on. I read this very quickly. I think I really like Lisa Jewell's thriller writing style. It's just so good. It's so hooking. You just keep wanting to read more and more and turning those pages, even though she's not always using the short staccato sentences that you tend to get in thrillers like this. And she did a great job with the characterization, these 2 women, and there's a suspenseful build in this that even though it's a slow-paced story, it's almost got the gothic pacing to it where you know it's building to something and you know it's going to be good, but you're going to have to be patient and strap in for the ride to get there, and everything does pay off. And what I really liked about this one in particular, because the other one I read was The Family Upstairs, is that I found the plot twists in The Family Upstairs to be a bit overboard and the book became unbelievable, but this managed to have twists that were believable and that I could really see happening. And I won't tell you what the ending of this book is, but that final chapter there did something that I really, really liked in terms of use of that trope, and I don't think I've seen it used so well, so accurately before, and it just left me thinking like, ooh, this is good. It gave me chills at the end. So I really enjoyed this thriller. I think it's an easy one to race through. You can see the suspenseful build in it, you can see the spiral downwards, and there are things that you don't predict, and that's always nice, but the hints and clues towards what happens is always there for you to pick up on as well. Jolly good thriller. I also read Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I was hoping to save this for Gothtober, but I was just in the mood to read this book at long last and try something by this author. I have to say though, I was a bit underwhelmed and I found this book to just be okay. So in this one, we're following a young woman and she is really broke, she's unemployed, she's got nowhere to live because she just broke up with her boyfriend who was cheating on her and just left his apartment, so she's really stranded and on her own. When a company decide to offer her a whole load of money and all she has to do is live in an apartment for 3 months. So surely there's got to be a catch, and when she goes there she discovers that in this building maybe not everything is as it seems. I thought it was okay, to be honest. I was reading it and reading it and reading it, and it's one of those books that has again the slow gothic pacing where it's very slow but you know that it's building towards something and it's got those hints of suspense markers along the way to get you there. And for me, I love that pacing. I can really get behind it. I'm happy to be a patient reader, but the payoff needs to be worth it, and I don't think the payoff was worth it in my opinion. I just felt like, okay, that's fine. It's not good, but nothing really blew my mind. It managed to stay in the realm of the believable, but it just didn't do it for me, and I think that's a personal thing. I think if that twist works for you, if that reveal works for you, you're going to really enjoy this book, but if that reveal underwhelms you after all the time that you had to wait for it, then it's just going to be a flop for you. So it was fine. I just don't think I'm going to read more Riley Sager because I have a feeling they're going to be in a similar vein of you need to wait for it, and I'm not always sure that wait is going to be worth it. I don't have much more to say. There is characterization in this, but it didn't blow my mind. I didn't feel particularly attuned to Leslie as a main character, and there's not enough secondary characters that are consistent throughout this for you to really get time to care about anyone other than her. So I think it was lacking on the character front, which is also a big plus for me usually, is the characters. So maybe that's another reason why we didn't click. I'm going to talk about all 3 of these books together because they're all in the same series. Look at me go. So I read Volume 1, Volume 2 and Volume 3 of Tokyo Ghoul by Sue Ishida. So this is a manga series. I watched the anime and I really enjoyed it, so I thought it was high time that I read the books, and I am having the time of my life reading them. I am fully just fangirling and getting into this world. I think the manga do it better than the anime. For Volume 1, I do think that there's quite a bit of misogyny in the first one, and the way that the women are drawn and perceived is like not great in this first volume, but bear with me, this is the only volume where I felt this way so far, and after this it passes. What I did really like about this volume is how we have our main character Kaneki. I think he's a great character to follow. He is unraveling a lot of these ideas about masculinity. I've never seen a man cry so much throughout a book, and he's just constantly crying because he's in a lot of turmoil, because I didn't even tell you what this book is about. Because in this world ghouls exist and ghouls eat humans, and then humans of course are trying to fight back and stay safe, but when a ghoul tries to eat Kaneki and it doesn't go the way that things planned, he ends up kind of getting an organ transplant from the ghoul that was trying to kill him, and so now he's half ghoul half human, and he is trying to live and survive in these 2 worlds, but he's also coming to reckon with the concept of being of these 2 worlds, because to him ghouls are still really scary, unruly creatures. So that's the plot of this one, but because he's having such a big identity crisis, my man is in tears all the time. He is struggling, and I appreciate getting to see like a male main character crying this much. But also at the forefront in this volume in particular, there's a lovely male friendship between Hide and Kaneki, and it's just pure brightness, and I love that friendship. And I like how a lot of what drives him is this friendship. Like, it's not a romantic relationship fueling a lot of what he does, it's a friendship, and a male friendship, which is really refreshing to see. The artwork in this, in the beginning I was just okay about it, but the further in I got, the more I loved the artwork, and I do think you can see the artist progressing as you go through the next volumes. So let me just move right along to volume 2. So I really enjoyed volume 2. In this one, the world building gets even deeper and you're introduced to the antagonists of this story, I would say. So I really liked that. I really liked getting to see two sides of the coin, and there's a lot about prejudices and the way that we perceive people and fail to see from their perspective, and I like how that was developed and discussed in this one. In this one, the artwork takes a step up, which I appreciated and really liked. I think this artist, Ishida, is just really good at drawing very good action scenes and action sequences that are easy to follow and understand what's happening. I also like how the sexism is completely dropped in this one. We see a lot of Tuka, who is the female character, but even when she's like running between buildings and leaping, like, you never see her skirt. There's none of that in there. It's all really well done and respectfully done. One of my favorite characters is introduced here. So one of my favorite characters is Hide, but also Yoma was introduced, and he had a Fast and Furious introduction, and I was here for it. He looks gorgeous on every page. So the fangirl in me really came out for this volume, but I really liked how it added tension to the story. And then we get to volume 3, and what can I say? I gave this one 5 stars, and it was a new favorite. I think this is where the series really kicks off, and I think it's the rule of 3 with manga. Like, you should try 3 volumes and then see what you think, because this is where I just fell even more in love than I already was. Because in this one, again, you're seeing those two sides of the coin, and there's some very important battles that are done here, and the symbolism between the battles ongoing and the themes just work so nicely, and the people who are fighting against each other are kind of feeding off each other's energy and revelations, but also are fighting against each other. The artwork in this one has reached its peak. I don't know, there's still more volumes to go, but the artwork in this is just so good, and it just keeps on getting better and better, and I'm just like, oh, can it even get better than this? The story is so emotional. If you like a good thematic element to it that can have you thinking deeply, if you enjoy analysing artwork, but also if you like really good likeable characters where even the villains seem likeable and you're like, whose side should I be on, this is one that you want to read. This is One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus. This is the sequel to One of Us Is Lying, which I read last year during Gothtober. Again, I was trying to save this for Gothtober, but I was just in the mood for a fun young adult thriller, and while I generally find Karen M. McManus's books just okay, I always have a good time. I think she does a really good job of writing characters that are typical, stereotypical teenagers, and then you learn there's a little bit more to them, and that's what makes her mysteries so good. I appreciated Knox as a character. I really liked that we got to see him. I really appreciated that she brought back characters from the first book, and it's not even just a cameo, they're actually fully in the story, and while they're not taking as much of a forefront as they did in the previous book, they still play a role, play a part in this one, which I think makes sense when you're going through a secondary school mystery series. The new set of characters, I like them equally well. They also had their own dramas and relationships to get through, and just being able to like the new set of characters and the old set of characters was a really good thing. I just appreciated it. She does the school setting well, where you see a lot of the things that happen within the school but also outside of the school. The only quibble I have with this is the mystery, because I'm not going to give anything away, but the mystery is done in a way in which you cannot figure things out because you don't actually ever get all of the pieces. You only get the pieces when the main characters figure everything out. So it's not one that you can try and guess and solve. Well, you can guess and solve who done it maybe, but you cannot guess and solve why they did it because you just don't have those pieces. And if that doesn't bother you, then read this away, you're going to enjoy it. But if you're here to try and solve a mystery while you're reading, you're not going to be able to enjoy this one nearly as much. For me personally, I don't try and solve Karen M. McManus's mysteries. I'm just here for the characters, I'm just here for the setting and for the overall fun and games of the vibe. So if that's what you're looking for, you're just going to enjoy this. I breezed through it, I had a good time, that's what I wanted from her book. I read The Comeback by Lily Chu, and this was 5 stars, a new favourite. This was just the book for me. Similar to The Stand-In, it has a lot of the same themes, but it's just so good. It's so much fun. This is what you want from an adult romance contemporary book. So in this one, we're following our main character. She's kind of the INTJ personality type. She is pursuing law, and she's aware that she's an Asian American woman trying to pursue law, and she's struggling with that, and her father always wanted to do law, and she's kind of thinking about maybe that's not what she wants to do in her life, when her roommate's cousin comes to stay with her, and she doesn't know who he is, and they start to form like a romantic relationship, and then bam, she discovers he is a K-pop star. So that is the gist of it. It's a celebrity ex-normal person romance where it's a K-pop star with a normal person, and what I liked about this one is everything about it. Just everything. I have read K-pop ex-normal person romances since, and I've been struggling a lot with the realism of them, because when they find out they're a K-pop star, how the relationship works or how things reach a happily ever after, I'm like, you're really stretching here. This wouldn't actually happen. I felt like this one was quite realistic in that sense of how a celebrity is when they're dating someone who's just a normal person, and it's largely from her perspective, so you're really seeing how she is feeling with the sudden layer of having to deal with security or fame or all the bits and pieces that come with maybe trying to date a K-pop star and keep it on the down low. So I appreciated getting to see that in a way that felt realistic. What I also really liked about this book is how well it juggles and balances everything. So yes, this is a romance, but also she has a complicated relationship with her sister that she has to work through. She has a complicated relationship with her father and her job and what job she really wants to do in life, and she's also kind of still working through who she is in terms of a relationship, because she's never really had a long-term, more emotional connection relationship, and she's like, how do I function in this, especially when it's on a scale where it's blown out of proportion because he's a celebrity. And it really manages to balance all of those strands of the storyline. So I really like when a romance is like that, when it's not just about the romance but it's about lots of other elements. I know not all romance readers are here for that kind of thing, but I personally am. This one as well is a book that is no steamy scenes. They are implied, and there's moments where they have conversations that reference the things that have happened behind a closed door that we don't get to see, if that's something you want to be warned about ahead of time. And I think the romance itself was really cute, like seeing the dates and seeing what they did to spend time with each other and how much work it had to be because he's a celebrity. I really liked seeing how their romance functioned. There's not too much time where she doesn't know that he's a K-pop star, which can be good because otherwise the book would have dragged, so the pacing in this one is very good. I just really liked everything. It made me so happy, and I think that's what a romance should do. Ji-hoon is absolutely the sweetest, cutest little cinnamon roll celebrity, and I also like that even though she is struggling with her work and her job and she is struggling with a lot of things, he is too. Like, he's really struggling with his identity and his work identity and personal identity and brand, and how do you find yourself in all of that. Even though it's not from his perspective, you can still clearly see his own character development happening and functioning and like flowing through the story. Delightful, absolutely delightful. I've read both of Lily Chu's books. They've both been fantastic, and I will read whatever she writes next. We're moving on to some disappointments now. So Rise to the Sun by Leah Johnson. I really didn't like this book. I read Leah Johnson's debut and I had a good time, so I was crossing my fingers that I was going to enjoy this one too, but it was just so awful. This one is about Olivia, and she falls in love with people constantly again and again and again, but relationships never seem to stick, and she is going to a live music festival with her best friend, and she's promised to not fall in love with everyone. It's going to just be a friendship holiday. And then you cue in Tony, who is grieving the loss of her father, and she just needs to see and figure out what she wants for her future, and that's why she's at the live music festival. The representation in this one that you're getting is like black queer people. One of them is a lesbian, one of them is bisexual. Everything about this was so bad, and I have to start with Olivia as the main character. She might share my name, but that's all she got, because I did not like her at all. I found her to be so judgmental and two-faced judgmental. Literally things happen that she's judging other people for doing them, and then a couple pages later she is doing the exact same thing. That is not okay, because it just shows your two-facedness. As well as that, Olivia promises her best friend that this is just going to be a best friend holiday. It's a live festival, like who else is her friend going to hang out with? And she ditches her time and time again. Her best friend even gives her clear instructions of what to do to be a better friend, and again she just wrecks it time and time again. And so she was just a rubbish friend. She was a rubbish friend, and I just couldn't stand it. Her priorities were a mess. Her priorities were all wrong. I also felt like this one was trying to do the like live festival music. It really brings together a community vibe, and it just didn't really connect for me. It wasn't getting there. It wasn't doing what I think it wanted to do, and it felt very flat as a storyline and atmosphere setting. I also think it was trying to have a lot of deep conversations about the sharing of non-consensual photos and also about gun violence, and it was trying to throw it in with the friendship issues and the romance, and it just wasn't doing any of them very well. It wasn't doing the balance that the comeback was doing. It was absolutely failing at balancing those. So instead of what a big topic like non-consensual image sharing and also gun violence are really big, emotional, heartfelt topics, but because it's a short book and it was trying to balance far too many things, it just didn't do any of them well, and all of them felt very surface level. And so I didn't like the characters, I didn't like the plot, and I didn't like the themes. So what was left for me to like? Pretty much nothing. I think also everything wrapped up at the end a bit too easily, a bit too quickly. I don't feel like characters really felt consequences for their actions, especially Olivia. So this was a no from me, unfortunately. The Secret Barrister. So this is Nothing But the Truth, which is the Secret Barrister's memoir. The Secret Barrister is a barrister in the UK who is anonymous, and they talk about why the law is in a very poor state at the moment, why it's deconstructing, and why it's not doing or serving the people justice that it needs to, in terms of staff and employment, but also in terms of people whose cases we're getting to see. So this memoir, I would have liked it if I hadn't read anything by the Secret Barrister before. I think a lot of this was quite repetitive, like really, really repetitive. Their first book was called The Secret Barrister, and it even had similar cases, like the cases that are mentioned in The Secret Barrister, you can tell that they're mentioned in this again, which makes sense because this is their memoir, and that was their like analysis of the law, and the case studies are the same. And even the footnotes are like, see the other book to learn more about this case, and it's like, I've already read the other book, okay? I already know what you're talking about here, and so I'm just seeing it again for the second time. And while I found the beginning of this interesting because they come from quite a Daily Mail Tory-esque background, and they absolutely flip their views throughout the process of being a barrister, that was interesting to me. But everything else, every single other case, I had very little interest in beyond their early years of trying to become a barrister, because I'd already read it before. So I don't know whether it's like you should just read one Secret Barrister book. I've read 2 out of the 3, but this just felt a bit too repetitive for me. However, if you haven't read any of the Secret Barrister, I really urge you to either read Nothing But the Truth or even just read The Secret Barrister. Both of them are really, really vital, important books about law systems, why they are flawed, what we can do to make them better, what we should be asking for when we write letters to our MP about the law system. I think a lot of people judge the law system without really knowing how it works, without really knowing what the staff are dealing with and struggling with and the issues that they're facing. So it's really good to kind of get that knowledge and read these books. So this is a weird review where I'm like, read it, but XYZ. And last but not least for this wrap up, I'm going to talk about my favourite thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. This is a huge chunky graphic novel of over 100 pages. It has absolutely stunning artwork on the inside, which has colours in some places. It's really detailed and penciled, and it's made to look like it's on notebook paper. I didn't really vibe with this. It's super expensive as well, but I didn't really vibe with this. So my issue with this is, as much as the artwork is detailed, as much as the artwork is coloured and gorgeous and everything, it's not the artwork for me. And it's really hard for me to say this, but I do think artwork is a bit like poetry. You're going to have styles that you prefer, and you're going to have styles that you just don't gel with. And for me, I just wasn't really gelling with the artwork. I also struggled a bit with the storyline because there are many parts to this story. It's about a young girl who sees herself as a monster. She believes that she's of monstrous nature and she's dealing with a lot. Her mother is sick, her brother is quite mysterious and a bit of a womanizer. The person who was in the flat above them died, but she believes she was murdered rather than just happened to die. And also she is discovering she has feelings for a girl at school. She's bullied at school as well, and so all of that is happening in this graphic novel, and this is part 1 of 2, and it was a lot to deal with, and I didn't really think it balanced all of those threads very neatly. I was very invested in the storyline of the murder, especially as we get to hear more about the woman who was murdered, her past. You get to learn a lot more about it, and she also is Jewish and went through the Holocaust, so every time we got flashbacks to what she had experienced in the past, I was really interested and I was eager to read those sections of the stories. But because that was done so well and was so vivid on the page and just came to life when it came to that storyline, all the other storylines paled in comparison and I was less invested. I wanted this to be about Anka, but it was not about Anka, it was about the little girl. I'm not going to read volume 2, I might just read a summary to get the end of Anka's story, but it's one I'm probably going to pass on to Simone. It was lovely to look at the artwork, it was lovely to see the story a bit more, but it's not my favourite thing. There you have it, there's all of the books that I'm going to talk about in this first part. Please subscribe to hear from part 2 where I've got more exciting books to talk about. Please let me know in the comment section down below what was the last book you read that you enjoyed. What was it called? What did you rate it? Have you read any of these books? Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!